Hello, this is David Erickson, and for today's screencast, I'm going to demonstrate a tool recently released by The Atlantic magazine called The Atlantic's Life Timeline. And what it is you put in your birth date, and it gives you a life timeline of significant cultural or historical events that occurred during your lifetime, based on their 160 years of archives. So one, it's an excellent example of using your content library and putting it to greater use. And so they will cite significant historical events that occurred during your timeline, and it will be accompanied by articles that are linked to articles from the Atlantic's archive, so you can read those as you go through your timeline. It's also an excellent social media marketing tool because, one, it's a vanity play. Everybody's interested in their own life, right? So they're likely to share their own timelines on social media, and there's a tool for doing that. It's also a nostalgic play. So people love nostalgia, and so they're likely to share it based on the nostalgic feelings they have. And it's a demographic play, so they're getting your birth date that you put in, and they're defining you by your generation. And what I'm most excited about this, though, is its utility for building marketing personas. So if I am building a persona, I'm going to use this tool to identify some historical or cultural milestones that occurred for that persona's throughout that persona's life that I might be able to use in my marketing messaging. So we're going to run through this with three generations, most active generations currently in existence: the Boomers, the Xers, and the Millennials. So I'm going to demonstrate it that way using celebrity musicians for each generation. So let's start with the Boomers. And the first Boomer celebrity musician was born on September 23, 1949. Anybody know whose birthday that is? 19. Oh, got one too far. That would be Bruce Springsteen. So what happens then is the Atlantic spits out this life timeline based on the birth date that you enter. It's in partnership with the National Geographic's Origins TV show, so they're getting some promotional consideration here. But then you see that the timeline, it gives you some events that happened during Bruce Springsteen's life. 1948, before Bruce Springsteen was born, you're one of the first people who's never lived in a world without LP records. How appropriate for Bruce Springsteen, right? 1949, the year Springsteen was born, in September of 49. That year, this year, the Atlantic celebrates its 160th birthday, making it 2 times as old as Bruce Springsteen. Got some sponsored content here. 1949. Around the time Springsteen was born, Howard Unruh killed 13 people, the first U.S. mass murder. So it began with the year that Springsteen was born. There's an article here that's linked to by David Frum about mass shootings and gun control in America from the Atlantic's archives. 1967, around Springsteen's 18th birthday, Nguyen Van Thieu, I think, was elected president of South Vietnam under a new constitution. 1969, at 19 years of old, as Springsteen was becoming a young man, he would have watched the moon landing. Significant event for baby boomers, obviously. 1979, Meryl Streep won her first Academy Award for her nomination for her role in The Deer Hunter. In 1982, Springsteen's life can be divided into 2 halves, before and after CD players, of course. There's some sponsored content here. 2007, when Springsteen turned 57, he would have watched humankind reach the outer solar system. And there you go. So there's a Boomer's history, and what I can do with this as a marketer as I'm building my marketing personas, it'll help me identify certain things that happened during that persona's life. So like the moon landing, I may be able to use imagery, space age imagery that would resonate with a boomer, or the line from One Small Step for Man, One Giant Leap for Mankind in marketing messages that boomers would pay attention to because it's such a significant historical touchstone for that generation. So let's do my generation next, Generation X. And the birth date for the famous Gen Xer musician is February 20th. 1967, which was the day that Kurt Cobain was born. And so for Cobain, 66, the year before he was born, would have been one of the first people who's never lived in a world without Star Trek. 1967, around the time he was born, 3 U.S. astronauts were killed during the first manned mission of the Apollo space program. The year he was born, the Atlantic would be 3 times as old as Kurt Cobain would be. 1980, this is what Hollywood thought teenagers looked like when Kurt Cobain became a teenager. It's not quite what Kurt Cobain looked like, so there's that. 1985, around his 18th birthday, as he's becoming a young man, Jordan and the Palestine Liberation Organization signed the Hussein-Arafat Accord for a joint Middle Eastern peace effort. 1980, at 22 years old, as a young man, he saw the collapse of the Berlin Wall. That's a significant event for us Gen Xers. His life could have been divided into 2 halves, before and after texting. In 2001, Vin Diesel, who was born the same year as Cobain, began starring in Fast and Furious. 2010 marked the Arab Spring. And then they'll also do projections into the future. So 2035, by the time, if he would have lived and turned 67, NASA said it would send humans to explore Mars. All right, so that's a Gen Xer. Let's do our final generation, the Millennials. And our famous Millennial musician was born March 1, 1994. And that would be Justin Bieber, of course. So Bieber, one of the first person who's never lived in a world without graphical web browsers. 1994, around the time Bieber was born, the CIA double agent Aldrich Ames was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. 1994, the year he was born, the Atlantic would be 7 times as old as him. 2001, of course, was the year that the Millennials, the generation most shaped by 9/11. So that is the major historical event that occurred in Millennials' lifetimes. 2005, life can be divided into 2 halves, before and after YouTube, which is highly appropriate for Bieber, who was, of course, owes his fame to YouTube. 2007, Hollywood, this is what Hollywood teenagers look like, or this is what teenagers look like to Hollywood. 2010 marked the Arab Spring, which Millennials generations participated in. 2012, around Bieber's 18th birthday, Trayvon Martin was shot and killed by George Zimmerman. 2012, Aly Raisman was born the same year as Bieber, most decorated American gymnast at the Olympic Games, winning gold in the team and floor events and bronze on the beam. By the time he turns 37 in 2032, the collective GDP of the 4 leading developing countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, is likely to match that of today's leading Western nations. So there you go. 3 generations, cultural, historical touchstones that you can use in building your personas and thinking about what types of marketing messages would work best with them. If you want to try it out, you can try out the Atlantic's life timeline at theatlantic.com/timeline. Have at it.